morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I don't think we could have picked a prettier day to have an event like this. Actually, if I'd have known so many people were going to be here, we'd order another bucket of chicken, but we'll get into that later, maybe. But thank you for being here. We have some really exciting news. If you're one of the 900,000 people here in Tennessee that fish, or those people in Georgia, the hundreds of thousands there as well, and even those states that benefit from all the work that Erwin does through all the eggs that they have. We're at one of the two federal fish hatcheries here in Tennessee, this one being Erwin, the other being Dale Hollow. And my name is Ed Carter. I'm the director of the Wildlife Agency here in Tennessee. And the reason it's important that we're here is because those federal fish hatcheries about 3 years ago were in dire trouble due to funding. And there are a number of agencies that get involved in those funding issues, but the Tennessee Valley Authority and the Wildlife Resources Agency here in Tennessee, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Department of Natural Resources in Georgia are all vitally interested in what happens because it means so much not only to the recreation and the fishing in Tennessee, but all those thousands of jobs and thousands of small businesses that derive their benefit through what happens here in the federal fish hatcheries. I want to say also thank you for our state and local officials who are here. We also have some Wildlife Resources Agency commissioners and any number of people who have taken their time to be here this morning to what I call a really historic day, because 3 years ago we were in trouble. Today we have really great news. All those federal agencies that are involved, as well as the two states, takes a lot of coordination. And a lot of times we hear how people are stalled, people don't work together. I'm here to tell you today that that is obviously not true. But sometimes when it gets into the federal arena, we sometimes need a catalyst to make those things happen. And the catalyst that we found was our senior senator from Tennessee, Lamar Alexander. Without his help, I'm not sure where we would be right now, but I know we'd be struggling. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Senator Lamar Alexander, our senior senator. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks very much, Ed. Before I make brief remarks, there are a lot of people here, and I might miss some of them, but I want to recognize Greg and Johnny Lynch, who are the mayors who are here, and Doris Hensley, Mayor of Erwin, is here, Marie Rice, County Chairman, Debbie Tittle, Senator Crow is here. My friend J.R. Bowman of many years is here with his family, Jim Buchanan, Bill Darden from Congressman Rowe's office is here, and Jill Salyers, Senator Corker's representative, is here. We all work together, and we're all united in this. Ed Carter's exactly right. I mean, we were here 3 years ago. It was nearly as hot, maybe a little hotter then, and the fish hatchery in Erwin was in deep trouble. It had a real danger of closing, and the same with Dale Hollow. And we're here today to announce that thanks to the Tennessee Valley Authority, the Erwin and Dale Hollow fish hatcheries, which were in danger of closing, will be staying open permanently. We have a permanent solution to the fish hatchery. Mayor Lynch was just saying that this has been heavy on the minds of a lot of people for a long time around here. People have worried about it. But this settles it. Dan, I met with Dan Ash, and we'll let his representative speak in just a minute. He's head of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. He came to my office last Wednesday, and he told me in a meeting there that insofar as the Fish and Wildlife Service is concerned, that the Erwin and Dale Hollow and the Chattahoochee fish hatcheries are open permanently. Now, what that means, of course, is important to Unicoi County and Erwin because of the history of the hatchery here. I was talking to Bill Johnson saying the hatchery is just more than a building around these parts. I remember painting it, years ago when I was running for governor, painting the house. But what it means to the people of Tennessee is it means 1 million trout will be continued to be released each year into the Tennessee waters, keeping trout fishing in Tennessee some of the best in our country. And as Ed said, this is good news for the 900,000 Tennesseans and visitors who each year buy hunting and fishing licenses in Tennessee. And it's good news for the businesses who serve those fishermen. Now, why is TVA involved in this? I'll let them speak on their own. But let me say it this way. TVA will be reimbursing the Fish and Wildlife Service for the fish its dams kill in the same way that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers reimburses the Fish and Wildlife Services for fish killed by the dams on the Cumberland River, and in the same way the Bonneville Power Operation out west reimburses Fish and Wildlife for fish killed on the Columbia and Snake Rivers. I'm now about to introduce a man whose organization made this day possible. Everybody here had a part in it, but if TVA hadn't gotten involved and hadn't offered its support, in my view, this hatchery would be closing. Bill Johnson is the chairman and chief executive of the Tennessee Valley Authority. He and his board made this decision. But let me just say it this way. It helps to have a TVA chairman who is also an avid trout fisherman when the issue is whether to keep open the fish hatchery that releases 1 million trout into Tennessee's waters. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big Unicoi County welcome to the TVA chairman, Bill Johnson.
Well, good morning, everyone. What a privilege to be introduced by Senator Alexander. You can tell he's a U.S. Senator because we're standing up here in the heat and he's not sweating. You know, there's a good outdoor writer in Wisconsin, a guy named Doug Larson, and he once wrote this: if people really focused on what's important in life, there'd be a shortage of fishing poles. And the announcement we're making here today, I think, will make sure that there's a ready supply of tackle and angling equipment in this region. You know, Tennessee and Georgia have two of the most diverse aquatic life fish populations anywhere in the country, more than 300 species in each state. And I read recently that the Tennessee River and its tributaries have more species than the entire continent of Europe. So I don't know if that's true or not. It might be a fact or a factoid, but I'm sticking with that one. So, and fishing for some of these species, particularly trout, is big business. You know, we do a lot of things at TVA to help with the trout. Water temperature, oxygen in the water. So we're excited to be part of this announcement that will make sure we continue to have fish in it. You know, at TVA, we do a couple things. We make energy, but we're also charged with recreational stewardship of our natural resources, and economic development. And fishing is not just recreation here, it's big business. Some statistics I've seen: for every $1 we put in a fishery, we get about $75 out from people who come here and fish and buy bait and comestibles. That's a fancy word for beer if you don't fish. Those things tend to go together. So we think this is a great opportunity, and we'll continue to be part of the recreational and economic development activities in Tennessee and Georgia. I just want to make this point. I am in favor of these things. I'm changing my TVA hat for my Trout Unlimited hat. Glad to be part of this. I'll be fishing this afternoon. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce Mike Edgar from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Mike, come on up.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Edgar, Deputy Regional Director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the Southeast region. And I'm very glad to be here today, and I can see by the turnout from today just how important today's announcement is, not only to our agency, but to all of you. This is an issue that's been going on for almost 4 years, and really in full discussions for 3, as Ed mentioned. And so, you know, on behalf of our agency, I want to take a moment to really thank the Senator for his personal interest in this and his leadership. And without that, we wouldn't be here today. And thank you, Bill and TVA. Without your commitment, not only the last 3 years, they provided funding for the last 3 years to help bridge us to this point, but the long-term commitment really means that we can go forward, keep this facility open, and invest in it. So thank you very much. And also to thank you to both Georgia and Tennessee, who have brought a lot of leadership. Our partnership is very strong, and we work through a lot of issues, and so they were there with us the whole way, and I very much appreciate it. I'd like to also say, for those people that haven't been here to Erwin, its importance in the national recreational fishery is that this is only one of 3 facilities in the entire country that produces disease-free eggs for trout programs. And so here we produce between 13 and 17 million eggs each year that goes out to states to be raised for the angling public. And then combined, so it's not just about Erwin today, but it's also about Dale Hollow National Fish Hatchery and Chattahoochee National Fish Hatchery in North Georgia. And combined, those three facilities generate $45 million in economic return each year, which is really important to the local communities. We understand that, and we're glad to be a part of it. So again, thank you everyone for their role, and appreciate the announcement that we're able to do today. Next up, I'm going to introduce Jeff Derniak of Georgia DNR. Jeff is a longtime angler, fisheries biologist, and then the regional director of Northern Georgia, and he's here representing his agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. It was truly a wonderful drive north from North Georgia today to celebrate this day. Thank you, Senator, and thanks to all our partners. In Georgia, we have a Million Fish trout program. 90% of those trout have an origin in the federal hatchery system with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So we had a deeply vested interest in the outcome of this project. But it's another classic example of partnership among the state and federal agencies, TVA, the Senator's office, and our stakeholder group that helped guide us through here. Again, we've had decades of partnership among state and federal agencies. Our folks really believe in solving problems, and hopefully we've solved the big one today. So on behalf of Director Foster, thank you so much for being invited up here to celebrate a great day. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Now, if there are any questions about the hatchery, we'll take those first from the news media. Yeah.
Excuse me for being a rookie at this, but can you explain to me the funding mechanism again, generally, of how this will work?
Yeah, so we will essentially reimburse the U.S. Fish and Wildlife for the fish that they grow here. I think that's the simplest way to say it. We'll send them money. That's the funding mechanism. Roughly $1 million a year. But I should point out, this is your money, right? TVA, we don't actually have any money. We use the people's money. This seems like a good use of the people's money, so that's where it comes from. Thank you for that.
And I think it's fair to say when we discussed this 3 years ago, someone said to me, well, why would TVA do that? TVA is doing, as I said, what the Army Corps of Engineers does. It reimburses the U.S. Fish and Wildlife for its dams on the Cumberland River because dams kill fish. And this reimburses the Fish and Wildlife Service to replace the fish. This is the same thing the Bonneville Power does out west with fish in the Columbia and Snake Rivers, and TVA is doing it here. Who else? Anyone else?
This is such a trout area. I mean, a lot, we're known field and stream and all of this. How's it, how's this going to keep us a trout area?
Let me let the fishermen answer that question.
Well,
You can do it.
yeah, anybody here can join in, but people come from around the world to fish here. From this spot, we have two of the top rivers in the country within about 30 minutes drive of here. Now, you only go fishing if you know you're going to catch fish. And most of this is catch and release, but we do need to replenish that population. And I think, with the continued work of U.S. Fish and Wildlife, our state partners, this will continue to be one of the premier fishing spots in the country. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that population goes down just a little.
Just a quick comment from us. We have 4 cold water hatcheries that our agency operates, but still 60% of the fish that we utilize in trout stocking comes through the federal hatcheries. All of our lake trout, all of our ground trout, and those are really sought after species. And to your point about being a destination, Tennessee is listed as world class when it comes to fisheries in parts of Georgia as well. So without this ongoing program, I'd hate to think where the trout fishery in Tennessee would go.
Any other questions?
Senator, touch a little more on what this means economically that we're able to continue this.
Well, economically, I mean, you've got the TVA chairman going to spend a little more time fishing and spend some of his money maybe. And we hope a lot of people do that. I was reminded driving up here again today, there's no more beautiful drive anywhere than driving up to Erwin. And with the opening of Rocky Fork State Park and the first rangers arriving this week, with this settling this issue about the fishing and calling more attention to the fact that it's some of the best fishing anywhere, I see the economic development of this region tied a great deal to what you would call outdoor destination tourism. People who love the outdoors and want to come to one of the best places to be there. I come from Blount County, Maryville. The Great Smoky Mountain National Park owns half our county. We don't complain about that. Neither does Sevier County, because it's created a lot higher family incomes in our area because of the tourists who come, stayed there, and left their money. I also think economic development in Upper East Tennessee will be depending a lot on the auto industry over the next several years, and that Unicoi County in this region is a good place for that. But there are very few places in the country that can match Upper East Tennessee, and especially Unicoi County, for what I'd call adventure tourism. And having the fish hatchery here and Rocky Fork here are two important steps in that. Thank you very much for coming.
All right, thanks everybody. We're going to go ahead and do a tour. And then we're through with that. If any of you want to speak to sportsmen's groups, I think they'll be glad to stick around after.